first. There it is.
All right.
Now I'd like to call the meeting to order. And first, I want to thank Jay for filling in for Sean. I appreciate it. So we're all part of the same team. It's nice to have three of us in this discussion. So thank you.
for having me.
With that, Noah and Rob, I'm not sure which one of you are going to take the lead, but
I'll let Noah lead the charge. These are, and I just say, we've got the numbers all together. The presentation for next week we're still not quite there. It'll look a little prettier next week. I'm certain of it. So, but the numbers are there and you guys will get the gist of it. So don't be afraid to ask questions and take it away, Noah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna send everyone an email with the materials from this meeting. So you'll receive that shortly. I'm gonna include you, Nick. Give me 1 second so I can shoot that off to you. Other than that, I'll have it on my screen and we can kind of walk through. Again, Rob had a goal of being done by 4:30 to 5 o'clock. So that's what I'm gonna focus on, keep us moving along from topic to topic. And so the first topic we're gonna just visit again is the biennial calendar. And then we'll go and talk about some budget adjustments, some things that have already occurred in the year. And again, a budget adjustment is something that the finance director has the authority to execute. It is not increasing expenditure authority, but it is reallocating either revenue or expenses within the fund, within our balances. So it's not changing the budget, it's just reallocating. And we'll talk about what adjustments were made and why. And then we'll actually get into the proposed modifications of all the directors. Apologize again, I'm trying to get this other report to you guys so you have it while we go through here. Sent to Janine and Brandy as well. Okay, great. All right, that's off to you guys' inbox. Hopefully you receive that. So first, we just completed the month of September. Again, during the month of September, we updated all departments on their budget status. We have them take a look at each of their budgets, and we provide some instructions on how to handle these modifications during this mid-year review. And then we ask them to respond with in a couple of categories, either reductions to their budget that they've identified that could occur, items that have already taken place that were over what we budgeted. So say it was an agreement or contract that we had included in the original budget, but things had changed and so the contract had gone over the original budget. So modifications there. And then the third category was really new requests. So they responded all to those instructions and provide me the material, and that's what we're gonna go through today. Next in October, so here we are, October 7th, meet with the finance committee to review kind of where we're at with these budget modifications and proposals and requests. The intent would be to then bring back comments from the finance committee and bring it again, like the mayor said, a prettier presentation to the work study session on October 19th for the full council and the public. And then following that week, we have the October 26th meeting where we have two goals we're going to accomplish at that meeting. First, we're going to have the public hearing on our revenue sources and property tax. And then we'll have a public hearing on the biennial budget modifications. And then later in that evening, we'll have action to adopt an ordinance for the property tax levy for 2022. And then we'll have an ordinance to adopt the modifications to the biennial budget. So 2 action items and 2 public hearings on the 26th. And if everything goes according to the schedule, we would adopt everything to be complete there, and then I can record all those modifications by the end of the year or early in January. Any questions on the schedule or timing at this moment? No? Okay. So the first, again, back to the agenda, we're going to cover budget adjustments. So the 3 budget adjustments that I have made as the finance director are as follows. ER&R transfers to services per change to accounting reporting. So as you might recall, we had an audit last year, which was being conducted after we were doing the budget process. So we budgeted a certain way to make funds and make payments to our ENRR fund. During the audit, the SAO advised us that there's a new reporting requirement and how to handle these transactions. So we were handling those as a strict transfer. So I'm going to use an example. We were transferring money from our general fund to ENR as a transfer expenditure code. And they said that's not the right way to handle it. It should actually be an expense code within the general fund. So it's merely an accounting adjustment from a transfer code to an expenditure code. There is no impact to the fund or the budget in this adjustment. Did I explain that well? Does everybody follow and track? Okay. So it's just updating again how we are recording those transactions. The second one,
You guys on the finance committee will remember we talked about that at the exit conference last year.
Right.
They had that accounting change.
Yeah, so the next one is a change regarding TIP 1.3 Bethel Sedgwick Phase 1 to Bethel to TIP 2.04 Bethel Lincoln. And then C is TIP 1.5A Old Clifton Design to TIP 2.04 Bethel Lincoln. So both these adjustments, we had originally budgeted money to go to TIP 1.3 and TIP 1.5A. After the budget was adopted, Public Works brought forward the Bethel Lincoln project, in which they had received a $1.5 million grant. And there is a local portion to that project. And so the council accepted the grant and awarded the contract for design work and asked to reallocate that $500,000, which was originally for TIP 1.3 to the TIP 2.04 to start the design work. Similarly, once Public Works got going and they found another opportunity to, improve the design because we had an engineer on contract, they wanted to do Bethel Mitchell roundabout design. And so when we brought forward that contract, council agreed to, I missed the number there, to reallocate $200,000 from TIP 1.5A to TIP 2.04.
And remember, that's the companion roundabout where they were applying for a grant, is what that one represents.
So I just want to show you real quick. So I close the loop on at least the TIP adjustments. So you can see that, again, nothing changed from a budget perspective. We had originally budgeted to transfer out of our McCormick Woods Transportation Fund $450,000 for TIP 1.5A. That's the original budget. The current budget is still for a transfer out of McCormick Transportation of $450,000. However, you'll see the adjustment now where I've defunded the 450. I have funded now $250,000 for the TIP 1.5 Old Clifton Roundabout 30% corridor design, and then TIP 2.04 for Bethel Mitchell design. So you can see the 450 was just reallocated all from TIP 1.5 to now two projects, TIP 1.5 for a 30% corridor, 60% design, and TIP 2.04 Bethel Mitchell design completion. The other adjustment, again, just trying to be transparent, is for the $300,000, which was originally for TIP 1.3, has now been reallocated to TIP 2.04 for Bethel Lincoln design. This page here reflects fiscal year 2021. So these were all the adjustments in 2021. You can see the budget did not change. It was a $750,000 of transfers out. It continues to remain a budget of $750,000 transfers out.
Okay, I have questions.
Okay.
And my first question is regarding the transfer out of McCormick Woods, those funds. Are we allowed to put those funds to the Bethel Mitchell roundabout?
Yes, when we redid our traffic impact fees and we negotiated the agreement with new agreement with McCormick, it allowed us to put all of our traffic impact fees into one bucket
Okay,
versus
Okay.
having two separate buckets.
okay, that answers that question. And the second question is you have got 300,000 from tip 13 to 204. I thought the page we just looked at had a different number. I don't remember 300,000 there. I remember something other than that.
Yes, you are correct, and just slightly ahead of me, Beck. So this is for fiscal year 2021. The next page shows the adjustments that occur for fiscal year 2022. And so the total amount was actually 500,000, 300,000 for 2021, 200,000 for 2022. And so you'll see here in 2022, again, we've reallocated from Bethel Lincoln to from tip 1.3 to the Bethel Lincoln 2.0 at 200,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
So I just wanted to cover that because I hadn't actually brought that document forward to show you, but I did make those adjustments once the council took action on all those things and directed me to do so. Again, those were budget adjustments, so I did not impact the funds. It was a reallocation as per council direction. Now we're actually going to talk about impacting funds. So we're
Just for clarification, I know this is the agenda and it's not a big deal, but on your item C, when you reallocated funds from 1.5A, you have $0. Just a typo kind of thing.
That's perfect. Yeah, and if you see those, let me know. Again, I wanted to have this more fresh when we meet with the full council, the work study session, so I will correct that.
These were all, things were moving in up to about 5 minutes before this meeting. So
I understand, trust me.
The other thing I would say in that, where we take the money from Old Clifton and move it, I would somehow in that bullet let us know that there's still money in there, that we didn't take it all out.
and we're adding actually to it in this process too.
Yeah, yeah.
And that fund will allow us to move forward on that roundabout to the, what was it, 30% design?
Not a roundabout there at Old Clifton. It's a multimodal, it's the pathway to connect between the two roundabouts.
Okay,
So it's pedestrian improvements.
there you go.
Yeah, and Beck, that's a good point. And what we will actually find is that when we go through the modifications, the request has been to put more money back into that project to make it whole as we start the original budget. So, we'll talk about it. So hopefully the way we're going to walk through this is a high level kind of end game summary overview look of all the impacts of the expense requests, revenues, and impacts to funds. And then we'll slowly kind of walk back into the detail that produced those high level results. So hopefully you can see this on my page. Trying to zoom in as large as I can without losing it. So this is the summary of all the requests and we'll start in the first column here, just because I always like to orient folks with what they're seeing. First column has the fund number. Next column has fund name and description, modified description here. The next column reflects the total expenses of the modifications being proposed. Okay, so we're only looking at what is being requested now in expenses and adjustments of revenue, and then ultimately the net impact of these two items. So for example, let's take a look at the general fund. Once we looked at the general fund, all the requests resulted in a total expenditure increase of $5.7 million for the remainder of the biennium. Of that, we've made some adjustments to the revenue budget of $7.1 million for the remainder of the biennium, which actually will produce a net impact to the general fund of $1.3 million, which will ultimately impact ending fund balance. So I just want to pause and make sure that's clear, because we were trying to make this as clear as possible. This column is only a net impact of the current proposed adjustments.
And Noah, it's not there yet, but what we talked about for the presentation at the work study, in particular, this current expense fund, the general fund, has the ARPA dollars and other restricted dollars within that $1.3 million. And we want to have a footnote at the bottom of this to details those restricted dollars. So
Yeah, so we do have that.
Okay, that came from our earlier meeting today. And so really unobligated dollars are about $253,000 after provided you approve all of the changes that we proposed to you in later in this meeting.
Okay. And that's why I'm pausing, make sure that's clear with the council members as far as what this chart is trying to convey.
And the reason the ARPA is at 510 is that we've already spoke to advancing a design for 600,000 for a water main. And we've got another proposal in this budget for 300,000 to complete the 100% design on well 13 so that we're shovel ready when we get water rights.
And the other footnote you might want to speak to, Rob, is this one right here, the obligated personnel, future salary and benefits.
Okay, and so what we've done there is put a plug number in there for our negotiations with our union folks.
No, actually, Rob, this was
Yes. It was the 3 public works employees. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Two different plots we've set aside. So remember we spoke to when we hired the 3 public works employees, we said we would recognize revenue and not obligate it for those 3 public works employees. We know we have at least 3 people retiring in the next few years. And so we wanted to have a cushion in the event that revenues dipped, we would have cash available to not lay somebody off just ahead of somebody else going to retire. So that explanation made sense. So go ahead, Noah, and talk about the other funds if you like.
And we'll come back to that if that's unclear. So again, real high level, you can see that in total, the request for expenses amount to $25 million of adjustments. And on the revenue side, we have $33 million of revenue adjustments. So fairly large modifications, but again, I'll be able to explain and walk through all the detail on all these. The big revenue modification you'll see down here in the water or in the sewer capital, excuse me. You got almost $11 million of additional sewer revenue being brought into the fund. And again, when we get into detail, you'll see this, most of this money on the capital side, including all the capital funds, is coming from the loans and grants that Public Works has been applying for and receiving. And in particular, Marina Pump Station loan, this is an additional $8.9 million increase to the budget because we received a total $13 million loan. The other thing I'll mention is the funds in the red here. Again, this is just showing you that the total expenses being adjusted are larger than the total revenues adjusting. This is not ending fund balance, but this will have an impact on the ending fund balance. So let's see if I can pull up. Or did I close it? But part of this work is we look at all our ending fund balances and to see that we're going to be positive when we close the year. And so even though these are negative, we're actually eating into our fund balance. We still have healthy ending fund balances after these adjustments. And I'll again, once we get to next week, I'll have that clearly shown here. Oh no. I apologize, my screen is freezing on me. Did you all receive the PDF?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna close. Rob, did you receive the PDF as well?
I did.
Do you mind if I let you share for a minute because mine's frozen?
Okay, let me go open my email.
Oh wait, Let's see here.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. So I'm gonna move on from the summary. We can come back to it, but overall, you can see the net effect is gonna be roughly $8 million of additional fund balance being modified. Okay, so the first item we want to look at are we've categorized as actions already taken by the city. Now, these are things that I would call cleanup. These are actions that the city council has taken. These are expenses that city has already incurred and we've paid for them from contracts, things that have gone over our estimated budgets. So we'll just kind of briefly walk through these, and for your ease, I've highlighted some that are kind of larger balances to talk about this specifically. But I'll start at the top and try to work through this as quickly as I can. So this is a Gorst Coalition. Again, when we adopted the budget, we had an amount of $5,000 in the budget for the Gorst Coalition efforts. Council later subsequently took action to increase our contribution to $20,000 per year. And so this is an additional increase of $35,000 to the budget just to match our current Gorst obligation and contract. Okay, and I like walking through that one first because I think that helps put the rest of these in context as far as what we're doing. Another good one example is the background process for the police department. Due to all the interviews and work of trying to recruit officers, they really went through their background budgets. And so they really have additional $25,000 of need currently to continue to try to recruit officers.
If you could back up to that legal services, no, I just want to touch on that too. That's a significant dollar amount. And you know, it's really nice that we have Jennifer joining Inslee Best, but it is given our legal firm more capacity for us. And as a result, and most of this is related to code development and development activities, which we know are very robust. I mean, we could tap the brakes and slow some of the spending down, but it would impact many of the things that and projects that we've got going on. So we've opted not to do that. And as a result, you know, we're spending more money. We will likely run out of money by about $50,000 at the end of the biennium. So we're asking to put some additional resources into the legal bucket.
And that kind of just confirmed my question that these adjustments are adjustments projected to carry us through the second half of the biennium. So
yes.
Yeah.
Nick's taking a few things away there. Couple of consultant contracts.
Yeah, he requested some defunding of some minor stuff. Again, here's another example where when we adopted the budget, we didn't think we'd have to rely on the South Kitsap Fire District for an inspection and reviews because we thought we were going to have our own building official that could do that earlier. Obviously, it's taken some time for us to recruit a building official, so we've had to rely on the fire district, and we've incurred expenses as such. So I'm trying to true that up and record in the budget those actual expenses we've had to incur.
And an update on that, I just ahead of this meeting, I was on a phone call with the fire chief, and his attorney and our attorney and him and I are going to have a Zoom meeting with Nick next Friday and try to hammer out. We're got a couple of things we're stuck on. So, but I hope to get that wrapped up by the end of this year. So that 55,000 represents 2021, excuse me.
So I highlighted in yellow the building inspection consultant, again, big dollar amount. Majority of this request, I would say 150,000 has already been incurred and paid out by the city. Again, there's been lots of building activity and the DCD department has had to outsource that work, and we've been paying those bills. So this is to get us, again, back in line with where our budget's really at. Here's some items that the city council took action on. The city council approved change order 1 for the Rice Ferguson Miller contract for Port Orchard Street Plaza and Bay Street improvements. As such, this budget amendment is really to clean up that contract action and to add additional $115,000 of expenditure authority to that contract. So I'm going to keep scrolling down in case you guys want me to stop and explain a particular one. Again, I'm trying to focus on the higher dollar ones. The judgments and settlements, we incurred that, we paid that. The street grant money for street lights. And then we come down here, Sydney Repair Sidewalk Street. You'll see that's $210,000 to the street fund as well as the sewage fund. The total estimate is about $421,000 split amongst those two. So that's a project that we did complete already. Again, the budget amendments just kind of follow up to clean up that already approved council action. Similar with the Citadel Hall design for the contract here for amendments 1 and 2. Again, this 220 gets us fully funded to that contract we've already adopted.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sure you said this already. What's the difference between the yellow line, yellow highlighted as opposed to just the plain white?
It was something that came out of our meeting earlier today. They were just the bigger items that I felt warranted an explanation versus just showing you a white page.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I thought I missed something.
And I guess good feedback from the finance committee will be, is this helpful as we go through this conversation for the work study? And if not, we can unhighlight it, make it all standard and look the same. But again, as the mayor said, we talked and he thought to focus the conversation, highlighting these would be important.
Have an opinion, Beck or John? Highlighted or not?
Well, I like it highlighted. I mean, not so much for the reason you said, although I think that's important. It just helps my eyes scan across the documents and keep track of numbers versus text.
So the next couple ones are related to, see now here, it's currently tip 2.04. I believe once DCD updates with Public Works, the new tip, they are modifying that designation to tip 1.7. So I have a note to myself so I can keep track of the project. But what this is that Bethel Lincoln roundabout. Again, here you see the construction cost of 1.5 million, which we have the grant for. And then our local portion is roughly $1 million for that project for the design and local match. So again, we've already entered into those design contracts. This portion is what we're paying for, and we'll come to the revenue, see where that's coming from later. Again, we continue down this kind of train of contracts we've already entered into and amendments that have already taken place. So we're just catching the budget up to those. We have McCormick Splash Pad needing additional funding of roughly $135,000 to get us to complete that project. And then we come down to the big one, the bank purchase here. Again, local funds contributing to the project of $300,000. We are receiving a grant of $1.2 million from Commerce, and we expect the PFD to provide the other $1 million. Again, that's per contract with PFD. So again, all these things are being increased on the expenditure side to give us authority to make that purchase in total dollars. And that's where you're seeing this here on the expenditure side.
So that is all expenses.
This is all expenses. Yep.
Okay.
We're gonna go through all the expenses first, and then we'll go to the revenues and kind of transfers to help balance the budget at the very end. The next big project we have here is the pottery lift station. Again, the emergency repair work. Again, we do have a loan for that, but this is the expenditure side. We do know that's up to 500,000. I think Public Works would say we don't expect that project to cost the full amount, but that hasn't settled yet. The next large project is the Marina sewer pump station. Again, we've been awarded $13 million to cover a $13 million project, which is great. We had already some money in the current budget for that project on the capital side. So this $5.25 million brings it to a total expenditure authority of $13 million for that project in this biennium. Now, by all expectations, we do not actually expect us to complete the full project in this biennium. but it will help us track this project over time if we have the full expenditure and revenue as we go. And then when we get to the next biennial budget, we will actually true up where we're at in the project and provide that expenditure authority in that biennial budget, as well as the revenue in that biennial budget.
So in essence, we're adding 5.25 million to that project. That would then bring it up to the 13 million.
Correct. Yeah. So that's, maybe I didn't mention this, but we have this broken down by department. So we got public works, and then personnel costs is our next large category here. Again, these are all the actions. These represent all the actions taken by council already. So again, the budget amendments just kind of cleaning up that work and adding additional salary and benefits by position for the overall salary budget of the city. And I can pause there to see if you had any questions on these personnel changes, or if these all look consistent with what you recall. Good. Okay.
Some of the negative numbers is because we provided promotional opportunities. And so we're removing one category and adding a different category that's slightly higher, because we gave somebody the opportunity to become a permit tech versus a permit clerk, and assistant planner to, and so this was promotional opportunities that we provided for with additional certifications.
Okay, so that takes us to a total of roughly $13.5 million of actions and things that the city's already gone forward and done as far as contracts and expenditures that we need to, clean that up with our efforts here. And again, the big portion is coming from the capital side for all these capital projects. Okay, then I will move on to the new requests. So now we try to lump all these into actually new requests for this new biennium. Again, we have it again by department on the far left, and the amounts. Actually, and let me take one step back here. You'll notice I have a green Y here on this right column here. That actually represents all the expenditures that approved by the mayor through this process. What I'm going to ask of the finance committee is, if you don't have any questions, would you support or approve this expenditure request? And if so, I'll flag that, and I'll bring that information again to the full study session to say, hey, this is what the mayor has approved. And here's what the finance committee has approved or rejected. And so here's the new numbers. So maybe I'll pause right there and ask the question, for these actions already taken, would you approve these? Do you have any you want to dispute or question?
I personally don't have any problems with the list, because I think we've been all involved in talking about the majority of these over the last year anyway. So
Yeah, and my comment is their action's already taken. So what difference does it make if we
yeah,
say, yeah, don't do that now?
Well, yeah,
Good
my
point.
question is, since some of these have been approved by the council, should it really, should it kind of been mayor/city council, approved if it's already been approved?
Well,
Yeah, that's good. Fair.
good
Yeah.
point. It's
I think this particular sheet should be already approved by council.
Right.
yeah,
And then it's a different animal on the next list that we're asked, where there is some decisions to be made.
yeah, the new stuff.
But-
Yeah, because it'd be problematic right now to say no to a contract the full council has already approved.
Right.
Well, good thing we didn't sign it. It was just you, Rob. So
Thanks.
Those are all good comments and notes as we move forward. So the next section is really the new requests. So we'll start at the top, and Rob, again, same format. These in this column, now you'll see some red. Now you'll see some no's. So the mayor said, we're not going to approve that at this moment in time. And so he'll speak to that. Again, we highlighted in yellow here, things of note that the mayor wanted to speak to, or we thought you might have an interest in. So with the first one, I'm just going to kick it off and have the mayor talk about the Small Business Development Center request.
I know that the Economic Development Committee got this proposal. We're the only city in the county currently not contributing to the Small Business Development Center. Jamie Forsyth is the manager of that program. It's through Western Washington University. And some would question, well, isn't that what KEDA is doing? And it's really not. It's resources and programs to assist smart startup businesses and our existing small businesses, to SBA loan assistance and things of that nature. It is a very valuable program. They're housed out of Paulsbo right now. I've talked to them about, when we have our community center and we have that co-working space, we sure would love her to, and she would be glad to do it if we had space for her, to meet with clients down here in Port Orchard too, versus being housed just up in Paulsbo at this time. But I think Beck, I know you got the presentation at economic development, and I think this is a very powerful program and
You have to remind me when, because I do not remember.
It was, 6 months ago. Yeah, it was, anyway, I think it's a very powerful program. They're doing a lot of good things for the small businesses in Kitsap County. Kitsap Bank and the other lending institutions actually fund the lion's share of this program, and each city in the county and Kitsap County have been asked to contribute $10,000. And Paulsbo and the county, I know, have been funding this for a few years, and the other cities have already committed to it. And so that's my request, is that we would also participate in this program and help fund it.
So this dollar amount is equivalent to what the others are contributing?
Yes. Yes. So if there aren't any more questions on that, I think the next one is near and dear to many of our hearts, the Derelict Vessels. We've got two now on the bottom. One of them is, we have 25,000 in the budget, and we've used a little bit of that money. And the one boat alone is going to cost 35,000 to raise. We've got now 32 vessels out there in the harbor, and we want to start seizing, ticketing and seizing vessels that aren't compliant with moving as frequently as they need to. And it's not going to do us any good to go out and write tickets and seize boats if we're not willing to go take these boats and have them derelict the boats destroyed before they sink.
I was going to ask Rob, the reason that we want to go seize them is so that we could dispose of them while it's less expensive to do that?
It's far less expensive. It's $5,000, $5,000 to $7,000, depending on the size of the boat, to tow it someplace versus having to raise it off the bottom. And I'm hopeful that if we seized a boat or two, that the behavior out there will change. I know that in the last couple of weeks, our police department went out and visited everybody out there and made contact with most of the people out there. And I would say a third of them that were very indignant and were argumentative to our police officers that they were entitled to be there, and they had to be educated on when the rules change. Yes, you can be anywhere on the water, but the moment you drop your anchor, the rules change, and that you need to be only in a 1 mile radius for no more than 30 days. So there's a lengthy process we have to go through in documenting that they haven't moved. And we don't want to expend those valuable man hours on the police department to do those processes if we're not going to be willing to eventually seize a boat or two and destroy a few of these derelict vessels that are anchored out in our bay.
Okay, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in our budget already, Noah, there is money in that line item.
Mm-hmm. There is 25,000.
Okay, so this 50 would be in addition to that.
Correct.
Okay, and the mayor, you said that one of the boats that's already dry, that it's about 35,000 to get rid of that boat.
Yes.
There's a second boat out there that is also dry. So what I'm proposing is that number, if there's an opportunity, that number be increased so we could get rid of both of the boats that are dry and still have money to take care of some of those that are at anchor that we would like to move.
Okay. What do you propose for a number?
Well, if they both, if we've got 20 or 25 there, and this 50 gives us 75, and we have, if both of the dry boats are 35 apiece, that's 70,000. That only gives you $5,000 to do the other work. I would be inclined to increase that to 75,000 so that we have $100,000 at our discretion to work on the derelict vessels.
I guess my only concern, and I very much appreciate what you're saying, Beck, but we're taking on a huge responsibility that is not, in my opinion, our responsibility.
Correct.
And even with what's being proposed here, it's significantly greater than what DNR is proposing for their next year's budget. So I could be supportive of what you're suggesting, Beck, but I think we need to really make sure that all of our legislative delegation, as well as even to the extent of knowing that we'll never collect it, sending DNR a bill for us taking what is their responsibility.
And we can send them a bill. It's just whether or not they have funds to pay it or not.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's an obligation that we're
Yeah.
bringing to their attention.
Yep. I don't disagree.
And again, I would be very supportive of that being part of our legislative agenda. I just would like to see something happen out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And
So
it is on the draft agenda that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah,
We
anyway,
got it.
I'm just bringing it up because we don't have enough money right now to get rid of both of those boats. So,
Yeah, I can support it, Beck. I understand what you're doing, and I too would like, I'm hoping what Rob had suggested is going to happen when people start seeing that we're going to
Right.
start taking action, that it will fix itself. But I just, it always bugs me sometimes when we're taking on what is the responsibility of somebody else.
no, agree.
There's unfunded mandates, John.
Yeah, no, it is. And, for your information, Transit has also put that on our legislative agenda to support DNR's request for additional funding, because we had to spend a ton of money on a derelict boat that got dumped on our property down in Annapolis. So,
Right.
Okay.
And just to clarify, Beck, in total for the biennial budget, we actually have $45,000 in the current budget.
Oh,
So
it's
with
more than I
that-
thought.
Yeah, so with this, that's 21 and 22. So with this additional 50, we'll have a total of 95,000 for the
Okay.
budget.
and that's all available. None of it's been spent today.
I don't think we've seen any boats at this point. So it's more than I thought.
Okay. So then this 50 might meet the needs that I had suggested. If we had 95 there, and it took us 70 to get rid of the others, we would have 25 left. So,
And I won't be bashful if we spend 95 to come back and ask for more if we need
Right.
to take care of more boats.
yeah,
Because
Okay.
I agree, we need to change the behavior out there.
Well, I'd like to see the boats seized, obviously before they sink because of the environmental impact also.
Okay, so I think, are we good then with the 50 based on that new information?
Yeah,
I'm good.
fine.
All right, the next big one is the body cameras. And I said no on this at this moment in time, because we're still evaluating which system to go with. And which there's a whole bunch of different options and bells and whistles that go with this stuff. And I want to bring back a proposal for a particular body camera and all the accessories that we need for public records and all of that stuff versus just throwing a plug number out there. And so I think we're $1.5 million ahead of, we project we'll spend $1.5 million ahead this year. And if that trend continues next year, we'll have plenty of money to address body cameras mid-year in 2022.
Okay, Rob?
Question, Jay?
Yeah, Mayor. Do you still not, wouldn't it be prudent though to at least have this as a earmark placeholder as, because when somebody sees no to that, they may see it as a different, take it as.
I'll
we're
speak to it
against
just as I have here and at the finance committee meeting. I'm supportive of body cameras.
Yeah.
And I intend to bring a proposal before the council, just not today.
Yeah,
We're not ready.
Yeah, but I mean, if it shows up as a public document, that's just what concerns me. That's all.
And I'm comfortable explaining it. So.
Okay.
The one thing that I think that would be nice also, Rob, when you come back, this is essentially the capital investment. This doesn't include the additional operational costs that are going to come with body cameras.
And I'm asking for later when we get into the personnel, mid-year next year, of actually hiring the person that will manage the program and the public records, because I think we need to have that person on board as we're implementing this. So I'm bringing a piece of this in this budget, because I think we're going to need to hire that person to help us implement whatever we decide. I just don't know what we're doing yet.
So we can talk about your person, but when you say public records request goes beyond requests for body cam information. So
all of the images that they will collect all day long, the public is entitled to see those images, and we have to review them and redact them.
I understand, but the person that you're asking for, I kind of got the perception that it is going to be doing this stuff for body cams, but additional public records requests. Is that
no? They're
devoted to the body cam project?
The chief thinks it might be more than one person, and I'm willing to entertain one at this time. But
my point really is that when we talk about this as a project, not necessarily specific capital investment, we need to make sure that everybody understands that it's going to cost us way more than $350,000.
Yeah, this is the hardware, and then there's the human resource side of that, which is a body to manage public records related to this program. And so there's a couple of elements. One, we need to do some modifications that you've approved the design in the police department, so I have someplace to put that body. And then I need to hire the body, and then we need equipment. So it's kind of, there's multiple steps in this process.
Yep.
Jumping to oops, there's another, you can see two items there in the community development box. There's a Bethel and Sedgwick consultant sub area plan, and down below the red one was the Mile Hill sub area plan. These are both plans in the next, between now and the next biennium, we need to complete. I picked one. You could change my pick if you chose to, and I'll just tell you why I picked what I picked, because we can only, human resources and only manage so many things, even if we had the dollars to pay for both of them. And the Bethel Sedgwick sub-area plan, and you can correct me at any time, Nick, if I miss this, is the area around Fred Meyer, and to create a sub-area plan for that area. The other one is in front of the Town Square Mall. And the state is proposing to do roundabouts at Wolves Road and at Retzel. And it would be nice to have the sub-area plan done for that. but the sub-area plan for Bethel and Sedgwick will help us score better on grants. And we're trying to get grant funding for that that segment of Bethel corridor. So I felt that was more important for that reason, for us to do that one first and then follow up later with the second sub-area plan. It probably in the next biennium, or if revenue is super strong and staff feels they can tackle it, maybe it's something we add this summer to the work plan.
I have a question here.
Okay.
And Nick, you're around, aren't you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, because what my question is it important that these be done prior to our comprehensive plan update, which I believe is 2024?
Correct. In the countywide planning policies, which went through KRCC and are at the county commissioners right now, and which we ultimately have to ratify, we have both Mile Hill and the Bethel Sedgwick areas are candidate centers. And so we have to address the centers criteria in a sub-area plan or in our comp plan as part of the 2024 update. And so the outreach and the work that needs to be done on both of these areas, it's just more than we can do in-house while we're also trying to get those updates going. So the hope is that consultants could help us prepare these plans and get something in place so that we remain countywide centers in the countywide planning policies.
Okay, so my question with that, Mayor, is the way you are proposing this, will it be possible for us to get these both completed for that comprehensive plan update?
I think so. I'll defer to Nick, but we can't wait long. I would say it'd be next summer, or for sure the beginning of 2023, we would have to do that work to make the deadlines for 2024. Nick?
That's correct. Both of these need to be done before June 30th of 2024. So the earlier we start on them, the better. I think the discussion that we had was, well, if we can only do one, which one do we do? And that's where the mayor's recommendation came from. That would still assume that the other one goes forward in 2023. But I think the preference would be to knock out both of them in 2022, at the very front end of the comprehensive planning process.
Okay, that's my comment. My comment is I would like to see us be able to move these forward in the time frame that we need to for the comprehensive plan update. So I'm good however we make that happen, as long as they're ready for the comprehensive plan update.
I'm just stating, if we don't do this, both of them now, we definitely, as we do our next biennial budget, have to have this other one in there for our comprehensive planning process. So I think we can stagger it a little bit here, but we've got it. We do need to recognize this will be a must do in our next budget. You guys good with that explanation? Sorry here, the mailman arrived.
Hey, Nick or Rob, do one of you want to speak to the Rice Fergus contract change order number 3? Because I believe, Nick, you have that coming to council next Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah, so the change order number 3, you approved change order number 1 already, which was the design of Bay Street, the streetscape improvements, the Orchard Street Plaza and the Port Street Plaza, and kind of the area around the Marina lift station. We had a change order number 2, which was like $2,000 of geotechnical work that was had to be done because of some borings. When we did the borings, we found something in the soil that we had to test, and so we just had to pay for that one, and that was within the administrative change order authority. Change order 3 would continue this plaza design around the Kitsap Bank building and into the Marina parking area and on Frederick. So basically, we had carved that area out because we didn't know what the bank's plans looked like at this time. And now that the bank is moving forward with design, it's apparent that area is very important to them. And so we are proposing to include that now in our overall design. So it added about $110,000 in cost to the scope of work.
So one of the things and why this one is highlighted is because we intend to have that on next Tuesday's agenda to move that along. And are you comfortable with it, A, being on this list and us bringing that forward next Tuesday to award that contract to the full council?
I am, once again, it's something that we've been talking about. I think we're all pretty much in agreement with it, so.
It keeps the project moving forward too.
The only question I have on some of that, Nick, is have we involved DOT with any of that Bay Street work? Because it is a state highway.
Yes, and that's part of our existing scope of work in phase one. The sub-consultant KPG engineers is going to be meeting with DOT about the roadway design and really what that looks like and how it still functions as a state highway. So yes, that is part of the scope of work. I would also add that we were even discussing this earlier today, but I think there's an opportunity potentially to apply for the construction dollars to complete engineering on what we're designing in both phase 1 and 3 and go after construction funding from KRCC in the next application window. And so that, because it's a small enough project, probably $2 to $3 million, it's kind of the right size project, and the next funding award is close to the timing of the construction for the community event center. And so we're floating that as a possible addition to the 6-year street plan, but obviously not for today's budget discussion, but this concept plan will go a long way towards sort of selling that application.
And Nick, since you're right here present with us, why don't you also talk about the task order number 4 here for the 600,000?
So that is just a pass-through expense. So task 2 under the interlocal agreement with the Public Facilities District was to do the schematic design. Task 3 is the acquisition, which we hope to close by the end of the year. And then task 4 is $600,000 to do the architectural design of the building. So once we wrap up the schematic design and finalize that work, we will move into architectural design and actually start designing the building, full construction plans. And I would expect that work starts midway through next year.
Okay, if you're ready to jump to the public works section, another contract.
Okay, I just want
Go
to
ahead.
clarify the timeline that you're talking about Bay Street, because the federal grants, this awards this time, the competition is for 25 and 26, I believe. And so
Correct.
the next time they will be for 27, 28. Is that the time frame you were thinking of, Nick?
We wanted to apply for the 25-26 funding window. So I
Okay,
believe those
so that's-
applications are due in the spring.
Okay, that perfect. That's just what I wanted to clarify. Okay, thank you.
It'd be nice to construct the street at the same time as the community center, but if we have to apply multiple times, I think this seems to be the right size project to fit into that funding bucket. Okay, I'm going to jump to the council chambers audio visual. We got a presentation on that recently, and I think Noah intends, if you're with your concurrence here, that we will bring that to the council meeting, I think the end of the month. Is that correct, Noah?
I'm targeting next Tuesday.
Or next Tuesday, okay.
And if not, then we'll bump it again to the final meeting of the month.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, we can't start at any time too soon.
And then if you don't have any questions on the ones in white, I will talk about, we've got, Noah, does this reflect the 2 GO4 charging stations here, the 10,000?
Yeah, we had 5,000 before, and so we've increased it to 10.
To 10. Okay, so we're looking at getting a pair of these, a different form of GO4 that's electric, one for water meter reading, and then we already have an electric car in the police's budget that we're going to take those same dollars and get one of these GO4s, which allows them it's electric, four-wheeled, it's a safer four-wheeled electric go-for, like our tricycle ones, but they're electric. And so we'll need a charging station in the Sallyport at City Hall, and then one out at Public Works, so that at the end of the day, they can charge these vehicles. And so we'll be off of fossil fuels for those go-fors, the new vehicles we get. So one we've already got money for, and later in this budget, you'll see money for the Public Works go-for. City Hall, and so Nick's building's the only one that's not other than the active club. All of our facilities and our major water and sewer infrastructure are on smart cards, ID cards, or smart keys. So we know who goes in and out of facilities and rooms. And so we're going to do that, make those improvements to Nick's building. And then there's a number of locations, like the front door on the council chambers. You can enter through the back door, but nobody's got keys anymore. So one of those four doors needs to have a key card access, so that when you come in the front door, maybe you can come in the front door of the council chambers and not have to walk around the building. The server vault is another location that we feel needs key card access, and finance has a vault, and the key hangs in a location where everybody knows where it's at. So it's probably not very secure to have a vault that anybody could access. We'd like to know who goes into the vault and when, for security reasons. So we've got another want of key card accesses and improvements from that standpoint. We want to pursue a grant for the solar array. We want to put it at City Hall, and we need a consultant to manage that process for us, because that solar array is very expensive. I think it's pushing $1 million. And if we can get somebody else to pay for it, why wouldn't we? So we've got money in this budget for that consultant. Old Cliff. So here
Rob,
you.
can I
Yeah.
stop you for a second and go back to the key card system?
Yeah.
You had mentioned that we've got this now installed in everywhere but Nick's place in the active club. Is there any consideration for putting this on the active club? And the only reason I mention it is that pre-COVID, of course, it was always a challenge for handing out keys, collecting keys. Everybody and their brother had keys, that sort of thing. And the key card system would help with that.
Public Works would love you for that. They hate managing keys. We're probably talking another $10,000 or $15,000 to do another building, because it needs the control unit. It's easier just to add them at City Hall because we have the control unit and we're running another sensor. But yes, we've talked about it, and it'll probably be in a future budget when I ask you for that. I've been just trying to nibble at this in bite-sized pieces. And but if you want to add to that, I won't object. And Public Works would love
Could
you.
I maybe suggest, and I don't want to spend any more money than we need to, but if we could put that on the want list, so that if we find that money is continuing to come in, the economy is continuing to be stronger than we anticipate, that's when we might consider doing that add-on.
Yeah.
It'd be great if we could tie them all together, so we have the contractor here at one time and do everything. But
Well, John, we had $350,000 in cash left on that. I think we could afford 10 or 15,000 if you really want it, versus us trying to track a want list.
well, I just think, based on what I've heard, and I'm looking to you guys to see if that's still the case, it would make your guys' life a lot easier to administer the active club building.
I don't disagree with you at all. If Mark was on this call, he'd be saying, please.
Are we actively using the active club building at this point with COVID?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
We've got
Starting
it.
to come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then if the other two members of this committee don't object, then I would certainly suggest that we look at, if it's only 10, 15 to put it on there, that we do it. And then we've got pretty much everything.
No, if
except
you
for some of
rounded
our
that
pump
number
stations
to,
and things. But
if you rounded that number to 50, I think we would, that 38 to 50, that's 12. I think we could get there.
Beck, Jay, you guys okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody's just gonna have to manage the key cards now, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
But
Well-
the nightmare that was there managing the keys before, and
Was right,
people would check out the keys and not turn it back, and pretty soon everybody in Port Orchard had a key. to
had a
it.
key, exactly.
And then we changed locks and then, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we would just give Melinda, I believe, access to turn those particular keys off and on, or IT would still manage it. I'm not certain how we will, but Melinda's the gatekeeper on that, and she's the one that checks the keys in and out.
Great.
That the next one that's highlighted, the old Clifton road design, that's the project that Beck was asking about earlier that we still had money for, and this is adding another 200 back to get it back to the full 450 that it was before, so that we've got money to design that element of the pathway between the two roundabouts.
Okay, I think those numbers are backwards. I thought, but I may be wrong. I thought we took 250 out and left it with 200. So we'd have to put 250 back in.
No, we actually, yeah, we took the 200 and it was 200 for the Bethel Mitchell. And so we do need, if the council wants to, we can return the 200,000 back to that project.
And then we've got Blueberry funded. Okay, this and the next one is the Blueberry the fee that the developer paid us in lieu of building the traffic signal that we knew we didn't want, and so we're utilizing 234 of the developer's money, putting some of our REIT funds into it for $350,000 to kick off that element of the Bethel corridor design. We're likely going to select a consultant to design the entire corridor from Salmonberry all the way to Bethel, and then only award this element first. And then in future budgets, we will use that same consultant that we provided. They're still doing a good job for us to further advance those designs with future budgets. But this at least gets us, a project designed in that segment of Bethel. And then the next one, the 300,000, is the well 13. I talked to Mark and Jackie about that project. We're at a 90% design right now. We're waiting on the Foster decision to give us water rights. It's eligible for ARPA funding. So to take, and they the number they gave us was 300,000 to get to 100% design, so that when we can go to add into construction as soon as we get the water rights, versus waiting 6 to 9 months to finish the design. Let's finish that design now, have it on the shelf, be shovel ready and ready to move forward. So that's a use of some of those ARPA funds. We've got the 2 public works trust fund loans that you just accepted here recently for a number of projects. And then also the controls, those actually 3 project loans that we accepted from the Public Works Trust Fund. And then the last item there is that $1 million. We talked about the retreat to pump up our street preservation and maintenance dollars by an additional $1 million this biennium. And Chris is going to, I believe it's in November, Beck, that Chris is going to give a presentation to the full council about the preservation and maintenance activities and what those will look like in 2023 or 2022.
Correct. He's going to do, and that came out of the retreat too. So
Yeah.
that the entire council was up to speed on what was going to be done and the priority of projects. So, yeah.
And how we're going to spend this $1 million.
Yeah.
We've hired a number, we didn't highlight them, but we've got a number of vehicle needs. There's that Highlander that we talked about, transferring that from the police department to DCD. And then we've hired a number of public works employees, but we can either get them bikes or we can either get them or pickups. And I think we can get more done if we get them pickups. So we've got to provide some vehicles to the public works department for those new hires. And then we get to personnel here. And so that very first one is the evidence specialist that we talked about. So that is half a year of salaries and benefits for the evidence specialist for the police department. And at the end of the day, they'll be the person redact or one of the people. And I think the plan is the chief's evidence specialists will be trained, cross-trained, so this person will do other evidence activity as well as the body cameras. There's removing, Nick can speak to his planner changes if he's available there.
Yeah, so this change, the market for planning staff is incredibly competitive right now, and we have 2 planners that are on their resume. They are easily senior planners somewhere else. We've created a senior planner job description that would provide some upward mobility for those planners, and it's more of a retention move. It's not a significant salary change, but it does give them a few steps above where they're at now so that they can continue growing, and hopefully we can hold on to those folks a while longer. So it's not an increase in the total number of FTEs, but it is a change from associate planner to senior planner. And there's a certification that those 2 staff members have to have in order to qualify. One of them has it now. The other one would have to pass an exam in April. And I don't see them having a difficulty doing that, but it is a hoop they would have to jump through.
Nick, I'm sorry I missed this. You basically said that would take both planners up to a senior planner, correct?
Correct. The 2 associate planners that we have now, both of them are mid-career professionals with over 10 years experience.
No. Okay, for a minute there, I thought it was like only one would be moved to senior, but we'd be moving both of them.
We'd be budgeting to move to both of them, but one of them has to pass an exam before they actually get the promotion.
Got that part. Thanks.
Okay. And then the next item is the mechanic. And we have 1 mechanic here at the city. This proposes to bring a second mechanic in, salary and benefits total at $116,000 a year. But in our analysis, we're spending, our current mechanic can only handle the public works vehicles, and we're outsourcing all of our police vehicles. The cost for that is it isn't that full 116. It's about $66,000 that we're spending on primarily the Ford dealership here in town. The problem with that scenario is 2 police officers go to the Ford dealership together, and one of them takes about 30 minutes to take all his police apparatus out of his vehicle that he's going to leave for a few hours or possibly a day at the Ford dealership, or he hangs out and watches them while they change the oil and do things on his car. And then he takes all of his gear and loads it into our spare vehicle. And then we have that same process when we go back and pick the vehicle back up. And so if we had our own mechanic, we would have that spare vehicle parked up at Public Works. It's a little crowded up there, but Tony says they could make it work. And then our police officer would schedule his service appointment with our mechanic, drive up, get in the vehicle that's waiting. It only involves 1 police officer and not 2. And then when his car's done, go back, pick his vehicle up and leave the spare vehicle behind. So, more than half of this gets paid for from not spending money at the dealership for service work. And there's just a huge component of efficiency with our staff time and the downtime with our staff related to taking our cars to the car dealership for service. So questions or comments on that, or
Rob, Mayor, I heard you say about half the time. What could they do with the remainder?
oh no, we have plenty of work for a mechanic,
Okay, that's.
a
I'm
second
sorry,
mechanic. There's plenty of work for a second mechanic. What I'm saying is the cost, what we're spending today
Mhm.
on service dollars is $66,000.
Right.
This mechanic is costing 116. It's costing more than it's costing us to outsource, but we're losing productivity and of our police officers.
Yeah, I got that part. I don't know if there's some way to smooth it that, the difference, that $50,000 difference is we're going to make up on that area. Does that make sense?
I
Well, the
can't
other-
go ahead, Beck.
Well, I was just going to say what we have had, I don't want to say difficulty, but challenges getting a mechanic. There was a while where we didn't have a mechanic, and that becomes very problematic too. So I have no problem with, should we say, redundancy in that department and having someone there, because those diesel mechanics are not easy to find, especially when agencies like Kitsap Transit covets our mechanic that we have.
Ouch.
That's a very good point, Beck. And then I just want to add that, so the outsourcing we're doing is primarily just oil changes. So there's a whole level of vehicle service, preventative maintenance that has our current mechanic and police and public works departments concerned that we're not getting all the attention that we can possibly get. Because when you just send it out for an oil change, they're not doing everything that an in-house mechanic would do to the fleet. And then we have more than just vehicles. We also have generators and other equipment that the mechanic then gets pulled off on to work on for our publics, for our parks, for our sewer, for our water, for different departments.
And we should just say that then.
Yeah.
Because it made it sound like we're only using them half time. That was my only comment.
Sorry, I conveyed it that way. It was, so I'll do a better job next at the work study. So the next item on there, sounds like there's support for that, is the utility compliance specialist. And this is a position that would be paid for out of the 3 enterprise funds. We have 2 elements of this job, of the 3 prongs of this job, that are being driven by permit requirements. We have updated additional requirements related to our water backflow devices that require more inspection. We have additional requirements on the stormwater side for illicit discharge. And the piece of that we want to do, the third piece, while it's not related to a mandate, it's a FOG program, which is fats, oils, and greases. We have a number of problems related in our sewer system related to restaurants primarily restaurants not properly maintaining their grease traps. And then it causes us all kinds of grief in our sewer system downstream from them. So this position would be an inspector that goes to businesses, looks at grease traps, looks at the backflow devices, and confirms that nobody's made any modifications to their floor drains and other things that are going into the stormwater system versus the sewer system where they're supposed to go. And so this would be a public works employee that, like, as I said, would be funded out of those 3 enterprise funds. And 2/3 of this job is being driven by new mandates related to our permits that we have to have. And the next, I think we talked about at the last finance committee when we were trying to find bandwidth to do a sewer grant, program, and recognizing that our finance department's at capacity. We're adding 150 new houses this year. And if Nick's correct, we're adding about 300 next year. Those are new sewer and water utility customers, and we need to add some capacity to our finance department. to be able to serve those customers. So that is adding a new position funded out of the general fund in the accounting department to help with primarily utility payment, utility customers.
Yeah, and it'll primarily be funded from the utilities.
Oh, that's true. Not the general fund. I misspoke. I have a contract in our judge's hand right now that he is reviewing, and hope to bring that, definitely plan to bring that to you before the end of the year. And my proposal increases his salary on par with 60% of what so he's a 60% judge in this new contract. And so I've gone to the state sets the salary through a salary commission for district court judges. And our judge does the same work as a district court judge up the hill for the county. So I'm proposing to pay him 60% of what a judge makes up on the hill. And so that's how I'm coming to that number. And now I'm the roughly $40,000 is the plug number that I was referring to earlier. We're in negotiations with all of our labor unions, and as we bring those contracts back to you for approval, we'll true up what the actual numbers are, but we wanted to set aside dollars for those negotiations and not make sure we didn't spend them somewhere else. So questions on any of those personnel matters, and do we have your support for what we've brought forward so far?
You've got my support. I don't know.
As long as you can tell me how you're going to pay for it, I'm good.
I think that's the next part.
Yeah, we got a couple more pages to go back.
Details.
Okay.
Okay, so next so we took care of all the expenses, right? The current contractual and the new requests. So now we're going to look at the revenue adjustments that are going to help us pay for those. Now, I will say that most of these revenue adjustments are really primarily a reflection of kind of activity we've already recognized and received. So I'll start at the top. So what I'm proposing is an adjustment, sorry for all this, an adjustment to the sales tax budget by $1.5 million. That's an additional $1.5 million to our biennial budget. Currently, year to date, we are over our budget by $1.2 million in sales tax revenue. Again, we talk about that every month. So we're taking on about $300,000 of what I'd say risk on the real estate, on the sales tax side, that it kind of meets or exceeds our expectations. License permit fee revenue from all the billing activity. Again, this is just an adjustment to kind of bring us current of where our revenues have actually come in at. The next category is our federal direct ARPA money. Again, just recognizing the money that came in. Proposing to increase the zoning. Oh, darn it. Oh. Proposing to increase the zoning and subdivision fees, again, by another $25,000 on the revenue side, again, reflecting what we've actually recorded and received. Same with plan checking of $250,000. TBD funds. Now, we actually did not budget the TBD funds because at the time we set the budget, those were in dispute. So that case has been resolved since. We are collecting those funds. This revenue budget adjustment is just what we would have normally put in the budget, but we chose not to because that was undecided at the time. Again, rebudgeting an additional REIT money of roughly $850,000. So again, reflecting what we've actually received for 2021. Park impact fees, an adjustment there. And then of course our transportation impact fees, $700,000 for 2021 and roughly additional $500,000 for 2022. Lastly, we talked about the Blueberry Bethel agreement that the developer and the city have already come to an agreement on, and they actually did pay us these funds. These funds do reside in our 304 account, which if you saw in the expenditure, we are proposing to spend that money in addition to some real estate excise tax to up to $350,000 to do some work on the Bethel roundabout and lights. The next,
Can I interrupt you for a second tonight? I have to apologize. I'm going to have to drop off the meeting. I've gone through and looked at your documents. I'm pretty much up to speed with all of what you're proposing. But I just got word that the ranking member of the Defense Subcommittee is going to be on the transit deck in about 10 minutes. So my apologies, but I'm going to have to jump off and run down.
Hopefully he can fund a ferry boat for you.
oh, you're muted, John.
I said, I'm not bashful and I'll certainly ask, and I apologize once again. So Beck, if you can take the chair, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good luck, John.
Okay. All right, we'll keep going and then again, take the guidance from the remaining council members. So the next section of our revenue is grants and loans. So again, this is just reflecting all the grants and loans that we have been awarded for this biennium. So I'll start at the top and go through these quickly because I really want to talk about the transfers to kind of close the loop on all this stuff. So task 4, again, we have it in the budget, $600,000 for 2022. That's in accordance with our agreement with the PFD. So that's that money that would come in. We've already received a grant for Lippert and sidewalk pavement work of $244,000. We have a light grant from the state for $55,000. An additional grant from the state TIB for $200,000. We've already received a $1.5 million grant award for, like we talked about, the Bethel Lincoln roundabout. And then this next whole section here is all the hard work of the Public Works Department. And I believe they reported on this in the last couple of meetings, but they have received awards for loans, again, low cost loans for the Melcher Pump Station, $500,000, Sedgwick Booster Station, $650,000, our lift station, again, that emergency loan. We've already completed that work. We're just waiting for everything to be submitted, and then we'll draw on that loan in low cost. The Marina Pump Station, Department of Ecology, in the total loan award is for $13 million. So you can see I'm bringing in an additional $8.9 million. We already had $4.1 million budgeted for the biennium from that loan benefactor. And then we have our sewer lift station controls, again, another award by the Public Works Board for $800,000. And then we come down below, a well design. That's the pre-construction loan, the $500,000 at 0% interest. Another loan received by the Public Works Department. And then the last two revenue factors are our commerce grant for the $1.2 million and the additional $1 million to complete the purchase of the property from the PFD. So in total, amounts to $23 million of revenue adjustments.
It's impressive that we got that much in everybody else's money. Noah, two things I'm not seeing here, and maybe they don't go here in the grants and awards, but what about the two ARPA projects, the 300 and the 600? Where
we have the ARPA money up above right here.
up above, up. Okay, there we go. All right. I just want to, so you're recognizing it there. I got it.
Yeah, so we're recognizing the revenue there, and that actually leads me into the next piece of the conversation, transfers. So one is we're actually incurring expenses out of particular funds and recording revenues to those particular funds. The next part is we're transferring money from one fund to another to cover certain expenditures or projects. So we'll use the ARPA as a lead-in example, because this, I think, will illustrate it. So you saw above, we're going to record $1.4 million of ARPA money, which we have received. And that money actually is in our general fund. So I got 001 over here as our general fund. And these first two transfers I'm proposing are to pay for the McCormick Water Intertie project of $600,000 and the well 13 90% design to 100% design. So you can see that $900,000 coming from the ARPA funding. Again, what's important about this is recording and demonstrating the transfer. So we're actually transferring money from our general fund 001, which was the ARPA money, to our water fund where we'll actually incur the expenses. So that's what's significant about the transfers. It's actually money moving from one fund to another to either complete a project or cover some other cost overruns. But that's why I wanted to go through the revenues first, so you can see that we actually recorded revenue into these funds, and then we might move it from there to another fund to cover a project. So continuing downwards, you'll see a lot of these will all be similar. Well, they should all be similar from this conversation on expenditures. We have task 4, the PDF or the PFD. Is this task 4? No, I'm sorry. This is not task 4. This is the local funds for the purchase of the property. This is our local contribution coming out of the general fund to our capital fund, where we would make the purchase from the property, 300,000. Again, you have your 20,000 for building and siding replacement, 10,000 for those GO4 stations that we discussed at City Hall, key cards and security, the 38,000, which now we will move to $50,000 per direction of the Finance Committee. We have the city solar grant support, 25,000. And then lastly, the council retreat for the street preservation dollars of $1 million. And you can see in the column here, these are all coming from the general fund and going to their respective funds where those projects will be expended out of. This next block of transfers is something I proposed to the mayor, and he said to bring it forward because we thought it made sense. In the original budget, we had budgeted $472,000 to come from our Fund 304, which is our street capital construction fund. And that 472 was going to be transferred from our street capital construction fund to our street preservation maintenance fund 002 to do preservation work. Since we've had such a healthy year thus far, I proposed that rather than move money from our street capital construction fund to our street operation and maintenance fund, let's reappropriate and leave those monies in the street capital construction fund for a future use on a street capital project. And instead, let's use the general fund to transfer money for the street preservation work. So that's what this transfer does here. It increases money from the general fund to go to our street fund, and it untransfers the amount from 304 to 002. But again, I thought that made sense because we had really healthy and strong balances in the general fund. So getting more of that general fund dollar to go to your street operations and preservation program has been a high priority of the council. And then it additionally made sense to maintain dollars in our street capital construction fund for those larger street projects that are going to be coming down our way once we get all these designs costs completed. So any questions there from either council members on that particular?
I'm good.
No? Okay.
Makes sense, actually.
Good. The next two transfers amounts are our local portion. So remember, we have a $3 million Bethel Lincoln project that we have received $1.5 million from the grant for construction. So we have a $1.5 million obligation local to that project. As we discussed early on in this budget meeting, we've already reappropriated $500,000 from tip 1.3 to 2.4. So this transfer now captures the remaining $1 million for that project, so we can say it's a fully funded project. And again, this money would come from our transportation impact fee fund and our transportation impact fees to our capital construction. The next transfer again focuses on restoring the $200,000 to tip Old Clifton Road. Again, and back up to that 450 level, which we originally budgeted. And so we have proposed $56,450 coming from our McCormick Woods transportation impact fee, and the remaining $143,000 coming from our general transportation impact fee. Again, our plan is to spend down the fund balance that is attributed to the McCormick transportation impact fee, and then we will only actually have one account we're tracking, which is the general transportation impact fee. So that will restore that $200,000 there from our impact fee fund to our transportation construction fund. The next transfer is a transfer from our REIT fund of $116,000. again, to our street capital construction fund. And this again is for that Blueberry intersection project that was 350. Again, $234,000 is coming from the money already received from the developer. This additional 116 will put us at a total budget of 350 to complete that project on the design phase. Next, we have a City Hall design contract, which we've already awarded. So this $220,000 to come from our REIT fund just funds that contract. It'll go from our REIT fund to our Fund 302. Next one, the McCormick Splash Pad. We're proposing an additional $135,000 to come from our park impact fee to the capital fund to complete the splash pad. We incurred some expenses relating to McCormick Sewer Lift Station number 2. We still haven't quite closed that project out. There's punch list items, so there's expenses trickling in that we had not originally budgeted for because we had hoped that we would have been closed last year in 2020, but those expenses have crept in. So I am trying to clean that up by proposing a budget adjustment to come from our sewer operations to our sewer capital fund to pay for those expenses. And then the last 4 are all about stabilization. So whenever we make these operational changes in adding additional staff, taking on anything that's going to be an ongoing cost, we have stabilization policies, which have certain benchmarks and targets. And when we adopted the budget, we had fully, by the end of 2022, met our stabilization targets. Well, we made significant changes in personnel that we've discussed and other operational expenses. So these are the new proposed additions to those funds that would make us meet our target again by the end of 2022.
Noah, this may be a little too simplistic, the question, but when you talk about stabilization contributions, we're really are we kind of adding to our reserves to make this sustainable?
Correct. Yeah, we're adding to our reserves consistent with the policies the council's adopted.
Okay, thank you.
So are there any questions on this visual here, the transfers?
Makes perfect sense.
Good. So then,
Hey, Noah, before you go any further, I know I sent this to you earlier today, but I wanted to inform both you and the council. The mayor called me about this about an hour ago. OFM is going to recognize the 2020 census number for Port Orchard, which is about 817 people more than they gave us credit for in their April numbers. So all of our state revenues that are allocated based on our population should be increasing by about 6.6%. And so on the revenue side, I don't know that we need the money to pay for any of this, but it's at least something that we can point to that also helps sort of soften the cost of these the expenditures. So I think you can probably expect about a 6.5% increase there.
Then that's great news for the city as a whole.
Yeah, and other than one grant and some body cameras that we know we're going to do in the future, we've really funded everything everybody's asked for, because I felt there was merit to everything. Everybody was, I didn't have any frivolous requests. And so, unless you have any questions, you support what we've brought forward to you tonight.
Yeah, and maybe before you guys answer that question, I want to take you back to the summary, because we started there. We dove through all the expenses, and they're all shown up here, as well as the revenues to support those. And again, all we're showing is the impact of these proposals. Again, the impact is positive. And in these select funds, it's just eating into a little fund balance. But as we looked at the fund, at least for the 3 funds that were negative, with this impact, it would reduce the ending fund balance, but we would end for this particular water capital, we would close 2022 with an ending fund balance of $2.3 million. For the sewer operating, we close with a $3.8 million fund balance. And for Fund 500, we would close with a $3.3 million fund balance.
Okay, Noah, you just brought up the piece that I felt, because it sounds like you're wrapping up the presentation. but you just alluded to the piece that I thought was missing. We saw the proposed expenses. We saw the proposed revenue. We saw the transfer accounting that you're going to be doing, but we have not seen ending account balances, which I think is an important element for council to look at.
Yeah,
So
I
no,
agree.
go
I
ahead.
just didn't get a chance to pull that last piece together. And again, that's why I want to swing back on, of all these changes, the only thing that's going to negatively impact fund balance are these three in red.
Correct.
I wanted to circle back to go, okay, well, what does that actually do? Because everything else is just a positive impact to the ending fund
Right.
balance, right?
Right.
So no, would it be a big deal, because you've got a week and a half to work on it, to add another column here with the projected ending fund balances?
No, we could do that.
Because that would totally answer that question that Beck's
Right.
asked. Where are we going to end up at?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully the council members took away that at least half of the expense requests were things that we've already done. There's only half that are new. The revenue adjustments that we've made, we've already realized those revenues. So they're not real aggressive. We're just recognizing the revenue where we're at year to date, plus the grants and loans that we've been awarded to fully fund all these requests.
You know, the piece, and I don't know that we need to show it, but we've got all these low interest loans, all of which are good. But I haven't seen a payment schedule. I haven't seen how that affects the payment schedule affects our fund balances. And I don't know if that's important to people or not, but I just when you brought up that one section, or these are all the loans we've got. Well, we've either got semi-annual or annual payments on those. So we can't lose sight of that.
Good
And
point. And the ones that we've gotten to date have all been enterprise fund loans. So we could have used, so we've,
We still need to know what those balances are, whether they're
Right.
enterprise funds or general funds.
Yeah. And if we show you the balances, we have more than enough cash. And the exercise Katie is doing as we speak, that we will probably see after the first of the year, is the health of, she's doing the analysis of our sewer and water funds, and these loans will get programmed into that, and we'll see what our rate revenue is paying for, what the impact, the connection charges are bringing us, and what the long-term health of our utilities look like. But that body of work is being done.
The other thing, Noah, is when I look at this presentation and your revenue adjustments you've made, on the revenue side, you've pretty much just brought the funds up to what we've already received. So if our revenue remains, particularly sales tax and the REIT funds remain as strong as it has, I'm going to say the last 24 months, or at least 18 months, I think our sales tax revenue has been robust. We will have money to do some of these other things, such as the body cameras or that other $100,000 sub-area plan. I think we're in a very strong position. So I appreciate the work you've put into this.
You're spot on, Beck. I mean, we've been very conservative in this, and that we will likely see if revenue continues on where it is, has been this last year, we're going to probably have another $1.5 million that we can do some of those things and have a good cash carry forward to start the next budget process with.
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to weigh in for a couple of things. And first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me to this meeting. It's awesome. I think a lot of good work and stuff. My two comments, and I know there may be some not pushback, but I appreciate just listening to them, is as you go through the items, I don't know if it's worth going through, because Beck, you were just talking about out years, and what to me, what some of these are one-time expenditures, and some of these, like especially when you get into personnel, are long-term. So it's sort of like, okay, we're going to be looking at revenue like sales tax. We're going to be, we see that as being a positive trend forward, but we also have these costs that we're now going to be incurring in the out years. So I don't know whether it makes a difference to identify or at least acknowledge that some of these expenses are long-term and some of these are going to be, obviously, hate to use the word forever, but short-term and long-term.
If I can address that
Sure.
on your next, so I believe Noah has done that body of work, because when he looked at the additional reserve support requirements, he didn't assign reserve requirements to one-time expenditures, but he did ongoing expenses. So we are conscious of that. I mean, obviously, though, if we saw a 5% reduction in our revenue, which we don't want to see,
Right.
we're going to have to look at ongoing expenses and where we can start trimming things. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen. We're growing the city. With that comes additional revenue, and we've got a healthy economy today.
Yeah, no, and again, this has been extremely positive. I'm just trying to think about what questions, folks that haven't listened to a 2-hour presentation, are going to, might have. Could you back up slides for a second slowly? There's something I had a question. Go all the way back to the top.
Well, that was the first top slide.
That was the first slide. Okay, it's the money slide. And I'm sorry, I guess I'm looking for the one that has expenditures and then the one that had revenues, not the joint ones, just not that one. Yeah. Okay, those are actions. Okay.
New request.
Yeah, keep going for a second if you don't mind. Yeah, we had revenues adjustments, and it on the one it says 23 million, and we're showing 33 up on the slide that has both expenditures and
Well, this is the loans. This is the loans and the grants.
the loans and the grants. Okay, that's where I was getting at, on the separate. So thank you, that just for clarifying that.
Overall, it was like 35, and
Right.
loans
Yeah.
and grants, we received 23.
All right. No, I thought it was great. That was my only comments along with other questions I had. So again, thanks for letting me come to the adult table.
I guess the only feedback, so it sounds like you guys, the finance committee, is supportive of the proposal with the addition of the moving that one value to $50,000.
Mhm.
And we'd like to see, I think they'd like to see a column on this page that you just passed.
Yep.
Yeah, we'd like it wherever it
Fund
is, an
balances.
ending fund balance. Yeah.
In your presentation.
Yeah.
And then-
you were going to change it to, council approved or whatever for that, for the actions.
So seeing for the work study session, I think we only planned 45 minutes, Rob.
And
And
I think we're going to be lucky to do it in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
yeah, so either we got to cut some stuff out.
Yeah, and we have a meeting.
I would cut out, okay, if you want, I would cut out the transfer section.
Uh-huh.
That's
I would concur.
details that the council's not going to be interested in. They're going to want to know, what are we spending our money on? How much money do we anticipate getting in, and what's our ending balance is going
Balance.
to be?
Concur.
Yeah, so that first part that you opened up was important to the finance committee.
Right.
With those transfers and what the body of work you were doing there.
The budget adjustments. Yeah, I think,
Right.
for the finance committee, that was important. I didn't know if the
Yeah.
full council would.
Yeah. So I agree. You should start with the where's that? I don't know. I got too much. I got paper here on my desk. So
Kind of work that way. Expenses and revenues.
it should start go back up, Noah.
And then before we break, there's one other thing I wanted to mention, Beck, for the finance committee. There will be one other change that we bring forward as a previous budget amendment or in the future. But there's been another change in reporting requirements which we currently have a fund called Fund 632, which is our wastewater treatment facility fund, where we receive revenues into that and then pass it on to our treatment facility partnership. We are now required to report that on our financials.
Oh,
So for 2020, we did report that correctly. We reported on their financials. So now we need to actually come back and amend the budget. And
that, okay.
yeah, so we will come back and either create another fund called 435 or something, but we'll need to bring that money into our budget process.
Okay.
And Rebecca, did I mess up anything on that description?
No, that is correct. So we will create a new fund name that's within the utility account structure, and then we will budget it where we didn't have to previously.
And no, I know you said you're going to send the slides out to the finance committee. Could you also include me on the slides?
Did I not include you, Jay? I'm sorry.
I don't think I had those when I looked. If you would just resend them anyway, just in case.
And if Rebecca didn't share this accounting change with really the sewer plant, when John and I were years ago on the utility committee together, this is the way we accounted for it. And then the auditor said we needed to do it differently. And now they're coming back and telling us we need to do it the way we used to do it. So.
Oh, well.
So is there anything else, information you needed to share today, Noah?
No, I think we covered everything. I got good
Okay.
from you all. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, appreciate it. Appreciate everyone's time. And I guess we'll see everybody on Tuesday.
Yes, go
Okay.
Hawks.
Perfect,
Absolutely.
thanks.
No, after you stop the recording.